tonight. So guess what? Y'all get us exclusively, and that's
Very
fine.
personal attention.
Absolutely. I do have quite a few. So sorry, Dan. Are we good to go on YouTube?
Yep, all good,
Okay. All right.
I
So
think.
uh so with us tonight we got Dan, me, Josh, Cujo, and down here is Dave. Again, if those don't line up with the direction I'm pointing, it's probably because I've got my screen set up weird and I've got things going across two monitors and whatnot. So I do have a couple of interesting articles to share, but first, um, we being the FPVFC, spent the last 2 days in a couple of meetings with the FAA, and I feel like both those meetings went well. One yesterday was with some retailers, and you know, due to some of the sensitive nature, I'm not going to talk about who those retailers were, but just as a method of communicating safety, the FAA's safety mission out to their consumers. And we made some progress on that. But the bigger conversation was today, in which and we've talked about this in the past. This last month, we were heavily involved in Drone Safety Awareness Week. And helped put together a project called Droning On After Dark in partnership with the FAA and the Pilot Institute. Um, and if you didn't get a chance to check those videos out, they are available on the Pilot Institute's YouTube channel. There were four of them spread across 4 nights. One involved heavily on FPV freestyle. The second was on FPV racing. The third was on general modeling or just like uh
Old
classical
guy modeling,
yeah,
beast.
old
Old
guy
guy.
modeling. Yeah, for sure. And then the fourth night was actually a simulated FPV race that took place over on Velocidrone with multi GP racers. So we feel like it was pretty successful. In terms of viewership of all those, their viewership was much higher than ours, which we consider a success. The first night with FPV Freestyle, I think she said that they garnered about 2,000 views and has gone up since then. And then about 1,500 on the FPV racing, and then about 1,000 on each of the remaining videos.
And they
So
were thrilled
uh,
with those numbers, it sounds like.
absolutely, and I think anything like those numbers are beyond what the FAA's initial reach is. So being able to partner with the Pilot Institute was definitely a boon. Um, and in covering that today, we also started discussing next year's drone safety awareness week, as well as possible objectives on a monthly slash maybe quarterly basis. It hasn't been nailed down yet, but we're already considering next year. So we're pretty excited about that, and we're trying to nail down some action items and ideas for content. So um, please look forward to some of that in the future. And just be aware that the FAA is doing uh they're working towards repairing their brand, I think, as well as communicating more effectively with the recreational community, and in a more constructive manner than has been evident in the past. So um uh we're pretty hopeful about what's going on, and we look forward to not only possible uh a better working relationship between the recreational community and the FAA, but a possible pathway to better ideas, better regulations, better uh, lessons for these regulatory bodies that impact us. And I think a lot of them are starting to understand where we're coming from as a recreational community. And it's really exciting to be able to be a part of that. So, um, not only are we working on the DAC, thanks to Mr. Dave over here, um, and working within the tasking groups. I think we're up to what, 9 tasking groups that we've been working on, and that's awesome. Um, but we're working with messaging with the FAA. We're working on um, being more recreational centric. We're working on ASTM standards. Again, thanks to Dave. Both Dan and Dave are involved in the ARC for
The
beyond
visual line
visual
of
line
sight
of sight.
arc.
Yep. So we've got multiple balls in the air.
Yep, and I
And
like during that meeting today, I feel like we're making progress, but it's slow. But we're teaching the
yes,
FAA. It feels like one employee at a time what recreational drone use and especially FPV is. And when we sort of describe it, I'm a little shocked sometimes by their reactions. They
yeah,
really don't know what we do, and we're slowly trying to teach them. And the meeting went really well, and like it was an 1 hour scheduled meeting, and we ended up talking for
stretching it to 2.
2 hours because they were so interested in talking to us. And I assume most of those people were like basically working an extra hour because at least on the East Coast they would have gone from
Mhm.
from 5 to 6 for that extra hour. So they probably weren't normally working those hours.
No, and we definitely appreciate the ability to communicate with them, and obviously are gracious for the time that they're giving us. So, um, but I think that one of my new personal missions as part of the FPVFC is to get the FAA, especially the UAS side of the FAA, educated on what the different types of drones, and that they all are not the same. So, and when I say that, we've talked a lot in our meetings about the different types of drones, whether they be for military purposes, educational purposes, agriculture purposes, aerial photography purposes. And then, obviously the hobby side, you've got FPV, you've got cinematography, you've got tiny whoops, and all those break down into further categories like freestyle and racing and, so on and so on. And so there's an infinite amount of uses for these amazing devices that we're engaged with. And but we're legislation and regulation is being written as a one whole entity kind of thing, and it's just not working. And
One size does
um
not fit all, as was repeated
absolutely.
many times during the last DAC.
Yeah. And so, between educating the FAA as well as another personal mission, and I think one that you know our contact within the FAA shares, is educating legislators as well. So, getting them on board with the different types and understanding all that, because if they're going to write legislation that's going to affect how the FAA drafts regulation, then they need to be educated on what they're actually writing legislation for. So it's been exciting, an exciting couple of days. It's been an exciting couple of months, especially for me. I don't, unfortunately, I don't get to, participate a whole lot in the DAC, as opposed to just reading on what's going on, offering suggestions, that kind of stuff on a personal level. But being able to engage in this manner is a lot of fun, and definitely an eye-opening experience. Now, the U.S. government is a regulatory body, and U.S. government as a whole, any type of government as a whole, moves slow. And they, and somebody once, told me about, slow moving people being snails leaving slime trails. That's how the US government feels sometimes. But, working within that and, seeing change occur, on a month to month basis, I think is a little more exciting. So, um, yeah, pretty cool. So I did want to lead with that because, it's more of what we're doing to help out the community, um, and
it's not super visible to people either if we don't
It isn't,
try to let
unfortunately. If
people
we
know.
don't talk about it, yeah, if we don't talk about it, nobody would know, right? Um, uh, so anyway, I just wanted to lead with that, and with that, I will jump into a couple pretty cool news articles. Something I'm kind of excited about. Let me get my screen shared here. the Selecting the correct one. All right. Do we have? Oh, I broke things.
Got little spinny boxes for your screen.
Yeah, it's not working. Okay, so let me try something else. All right, cool. I think we got it now.
There we go. Now I see it.
So, I am a huge fan of the GoPro Session. I like its form factor. I like its weight. Um, I don't like big giant things sticking off the ends of my quad that can get damaged in terms of, all the other GoPros that have existed. So apparently a YouTuber slash influencer accidentally revealed the new DJI Action Cam. And this thing is looking more and more like the Session. So it weighs. There's another article. I didn't bring it for this one, but somebody had leaked the specs for this thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm
Comes in.
pretty sure we saw renders and details about it before this video came out, but this is probably the first one that actually like shows the camera right there in the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got the camera up here. It comes in at 56 grams. It's got 155-degree field of view.
Yeah, I forget what a Hero, well, Hero 10 is at these
About
days, but
80. The
for
Session I think was
grams.
85. So this is going to be even lighter than the Session.
Yeah, it's just
So
tiny weight-wise compared to like a new Hero 10, which is a big deal for flying like a 5-inch drone. You don't want all that extra weight if you don't need to.
absolutely. And the nice thing is with this weight, this is great for the smaller 3-inch, Cinewhoops and stuff like that. So it can do 4K at 60 frames per second. It's got a couple other video options on there as well. The other cool thing is it's modular, so you can attach a screen to it, and it just clips onto the bottom and hooks in via kind of like a hot swap kind of port. You can attach an external battery. The internal battery runs for about 50-ish, 50, 52 minutes. Um, so, but you can add on an external battery,
That's
external
cool.
screen. There's external plates that allow it to be hooked onto kind of like a ball joint, a la
And they
GoPro.
figured that all out just from this little screen grab?
No, this is also information coming from that other leak that I found. So, um, and then, oh, here's the ball joint right here down at the bottom. So it just clips onto the bottom there, a little ball joint, and then you can hook it up to whatever. You've got kind of like a magnetic attachment plate there, if you want to wear it. It's got rock steady technology, which would be your video stabilization. So pretty cool. I'm excited for this. Everything I see is that it should be coming out in the next month or two. So I'd be interested to see what the price point on this thing, as well as what the price point on all the accessories are. So,
Cool. And I
uh,
assume you could, I assume you can buy it at Best Buy with a Best Buy protection plan, which would be great.
yeah, absolutely. So, um, I haven't, that form factor that the Session kind of dropped into was excellent, especially for what we do.
Yeah.
And I do, my Session still kind of works and still kind of doesn't. It depends on the day on if it wants to do anything, but it would be nice to be able to replace it at some point with something fancy like this. And then I'm gonna have to start, drawing up 3D models for mounts and all that good stuff once it comes out for all my drones. So, but yeah, super exciting on that. This is a new. They're calling it a drone. I wouldn't exactly call it a drone, but a robot that can both walk and fly. It's got two little spindly legs, and it's got quadcopter style propellers up towards the head of it that helps it maintain its balance. So as it's walking, the propellers kind of maintain its balance at the same time, and it can also do short flights. They're calling it Leonardo or Leo, and it stands for Legs Onboard Drone. Um,
So,
it's
so does this actually have to follow FAA regulations or not?
Well, I would imagine if it's walking, no, and if it's flying,
When
probably.
it's jumping down the stairs?
It
Definitely
doesn't say how
a,
much it weighs, but I would say that it's probably going to be pretty light. It can walk a tightrope, which I find pretty cool. I don't know if it's so much walking as it is hovering, but
hovering with its feet on the rope.
oh, here we go. It's 5.7 pounds, so it's heavier than I thought it would be, and it's 2.5 feet tall. So that looks much smaller than it actually is. So pretty crazy little thing. This is being developed by Caltech. Those super smart guys there. So super cool.
Weird.
Let's see. So the net. Oh, let's see. You're gonna have to help me out with this one. National Oceanography.
Oceanographic. Um, I forget what the A stands for.
Yeah, I don't know either. Anyway, NOAA, who generally tracks stuff going on in the oceans as well as weather, sent a drone into Hurricane Sam. So let's see.
And that was like
Now,
a boat, right? A drone boat.
mhm. So it says scientists know what the storm looked like from the inside out. They sailed a drone straight into the heart of the hurricane. It was the first time NOAA had successfully piloted a seagoing drone inside a hurricane. The agency hopes to use scientific data collected by special sensors on the vehicle to improve future hurricane models and forecasts. And
National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration.
thank you. Okay.
Uncle Stewie posted exactly the same thing in the live chat on YouTube.
Excellent. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Stewie.
So, through its partnership with Saildrone, NOAA currently has 5 vehicles drifting around on the open ocean. In a stroke of luck, they noticed that Hurricane Sam was projected to pass close to one of them. So they positioned the Saildrone ahead of time using that advanced knowledge and got into a position where it was most likely to intercept the path of Sam. And it turned out very well. So, this is great. It may not be a flying drone, but the technology of robotics and what it can help accomplish for mankind, this is another one of those, drones for good kind of stories. And pretty cool that we're using this kind of automated, remotely piloted, tech to, study our planet. Among the other amazing things that drones and robotics can do. All right. Here we've got FAA's Lance offers instant night flight approval for Part 107 commercial drone pilots. So onboard navigation systems are not the only thing in the aerial world increasingly benefiting from an automated capacities. Now, Part 107 certified drone pilots requesting approval for commercial night flights in restricted zones can receive quasi real-time authorizations from Lance processing services. So this would be like your services like Aloft, Airspace Link, Wing, anybody who's providing
and
those
not
lines.
not AirMap.
Nope, AirMap got removed, and we don't know if it's temporary or if it's permanent. But they also got removed from the FAA's website as a partner. So
up until now, right? If you tried to get Lance authorization after dusk, like it would just say no, right?
correct. So and now that has changed. Now before, in order to fly at night as a Part 107, and it goes into detail here, but you had to basically get approval for one day and the next day, for both those flights in a concurrent, in that concurrent location, and then you would have to put in a application for a national authorization for nighttime operation. So it was a many stepped process, but now they've kind of parsed that down into a much quicker process. However, um, you do need to be Part 107 certified commercial drone pilots who have completed the FAA night flight training and have equipped your aircraft with anti-collision lights visible for at least 3 miles.
So you still
Excuse
have
me.
to follow all the rules. You just you can get approval quicker. Besides
And,
submitting a waiver.
yeah, and as we've
Correct.
said before, this is for flying in controlled airspace, which you'd need to do
Yes.
if you're recreational as well. And our friends at Aloft offer recreational landscape ability for nothing for free for recreational pilots. So our thanks to Aloft.
Absolutely. So flights in controlled airspace for recreational are still not, you can't apply for them through Lance. But you can fly in uncontrolled airspace at night recreationally. So there's no restrictions currently, I will say. So pretty cool that we're moving, steps forward here.
I bet the FAA likes that too. A lot less waivers they have to do the paperwork for.
Absolutely. I would imagine, again, we talked about waivers last time, but the more automated they can make this, the easier it's going to be for everybody involved. And even in some of our documents where we've responded to different things, the wait period for a lot of these waivers is unbearably long, 90 days, in some cases. So and when you're trying to plan out, if you're a Part 107 and you're trying to plan out your budget and your timeline for doing projects and having to do things 90 days in advance, it really puts you behind the eight ball against, perhaps a client that needs, more immediate processing of their job, so speeding that up would be beneficial for everybody. And especially, when we were talking about waivers last time, we were talking about waivers not against, but waivers for not needing a visual observer and having to plan that out 90 days in advance. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't work. So, pretty interesting. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. This involves Race Day Quads and Tyler Brennan's case against the FAA for remote ID. If you haven't had a chance, I am going to post this article in the chat for the simple reason that there's 2 documents within it that, if you haven't read, are worth a read. So, and those would be the brief that Tyler and his team posted to the courts against remote ID and their arguments against it, as well as the FAA has just responded to their brief with their own brief. So steps forward from here would be that Tyler and his team have, I think, about 30 days to respond to that, and at which point oral arguments would begin and the case would be either decided or declined.
And the FAA's brief, I believe, all just says we're doing everything right. There's no reason for a lawsuit against us. Obviously,
essentially,
we
yeah,
think we're doing everything correctly.
Yeah, and I mean, I read it last night. I spent a little bit of time reading their response. I've read Tyler's brief, and you can kind of see it from both sides. So again, this is another approach to remote ID and any grievances people might have about remote ID. I'm not saying this is a wrong response or a right response. It's just another response. And at the same time, you can kind of see both sides of it, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. So I do recommend reading the article. This comes from Forbes. So, it is getting some attention. Um, but it's, again, definitely worth a read, and, let me
And
know what you think.
and Dawn is a former JAG officer. The author of this article, Dawn Zoldi, very well respected in the drone industry. So it's great that they got someone knowledgeable to write the article in Forbes. But
Absolutely.
also point out a little disappointment is some of you might have noticed that Tyler Brennan posted that AUVSI has signed on to work with the FAA on their side of this lawsuit. That's of course somewhat distressing to us. AUVSI is a 501c3. They're dedicated to commercial, I was going to say exploitation, but growth of the drone industry, and that's frequently, unfortunately, to the detriment to the recreational community. So we'll
Absolutely.
see how this develops.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Uncle Stewie again over in the YouTube chat says his take on the brief is essentially that the FAA is saying, well, Congress told us to do this, so that's what we have to do. So, and
Well,
and
and
it'll be
and the
interesting to see how it progresses from here.
from a certain aspect, and this is something we've kind of talked about, is they're not wrong. Congress mandated that remote ID be investigated, and that rules for identifying remotely piloted aircraft be kind of promulgated. And so the FAA created a rule document, and we had the ability to respond. And I think we responded in excellent fashion with 53,000 comments. I do think that from a certain aspect, the FAA listened a lot to what we had to say and changed the rule significantly, based on some of those comments. Um, it still may not be the best cup of tea that you can make, but at the same time, I don't feel it is going to kill the hobby like the original rule set felt like it was going to. So or the original notice of proposed rulemaking. So um it'll be interesting to watch this play out. It's interesting to see both sides of the story and kind of take from it what you will.
And did you already
So
say this? When did this come out? This was yesterday, if I remember right.
yeah, Tyler posted about it on Facebook, and I immediately clicked it and sat down and started reading. So
So it's
it
good
was
to see things are still moving along. I have no idea
Mhm.
when the next phase will be, but
So
it's
I think it's 30
still
days
going.
for Tyler to respond. So we'll probably, I would imagine he would publish that response as well. And then it will definitely roll over into 2022 before anything's kind of finalized from any aspect, whether the case is accepted or declined. And if it's accepted, then obviously you go through the trial phase. But I would expect either side to probably appeal a decision, and that's the way our court system works to you know tackle things like this.
And
So.
Uncle Stewie's making another interesting observation here. He's saying, as a ham operator, there are a lot of parallels between their frequency reassignment for commercial use and the commercial UAS airspace allocations.
Okay, that makes sense. It'd be again, right now, um, there's not like a separate you know sector of sky that airspace is being set aside for commercial, but remote ID at the same time would, I think they're hoping to utilize it in a method to kind of create that space, not necessarily segment off the airspace, but create distance between, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and I assume Dave, you could speak a little bit more about what's going on in the amateur or the radio side of things with the FAA trying to reassign
Yeah,
some
that's been,
allocations there.
and I'm dreadfully afraid of what's going on with the FCC because and I don't see the parallel with what's happening with integration of drones or UAS into the national airspace. What's happening with the FCC is the FCC is auctioning off frequency at billions of dollars, and they keep carving back and carving back and cutting back. There has been some recent progress on what was in the FAA 2018 Reauthorization Act, Section 374, to be too specific, tongue firmly in cheek, but that was all about allocation of spectrum for UAS. And so there has been some positive movement that the FCC agreed that they would do that, but they're not allocating spectrum that we had hoped for, and they are auctioning it off. So we're being, as they would talk about an airspace grab, there's a frequency grab going on the radio frequency side of things, and on the airspace. So far from all the work that we're doing, is there is on both crewed or manned aircraft as well as unmanned or uncrewed aircraft, there's a strong view, just as Josh said, to not segregate or allocate airspace, but to integrate flight. And that's still a very popular view.
So does it seem like the FCC is trying to take radio waves away from the amateur space and give that to what the FAA wants for drones, or is that
From what I can tell, is the FCC is selling radio frequency that was allocated to UAS and selling it to the cell phone companies.
Okay.
Yeah, not a good situation.
Josh, you're on mute, but you're talking enthusiastically.
Sorry. So do you see that as a kind of forward proposition for utilizing those UAS frequencies, from a cell phone aspect for possible USS, or for UAS frequencies as all from a cell phone aspect, from
It's not clear what the utilization purpose would be, and it was definitely not that they had to use them for the unmanned traffic management system. It looks like they could use, the cell phone companies could allocate them and use them for their own, for whatever purpose they'd like.
Gotcha. Okay.
Notably expansion of 5G.
Interesting. All right. Well, good times. All right. So oftentimes we do like to show money that the FAA is spending in terms of research in drones. So they announced yesterday that $2.8 million in drone research, education, and training grants to fund 5 universities. The funding will focus on 3 areas: advanced material, right-of-way rules, and flight data recorder requirements. These schools are Mississippi State University, Wichita State University, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, the University of Kansas, and the University of North Dakota. All 5 of these universities, I believe, are partner universities with the FAA, and do a lot of research in terms of UAS. So it's funny that I found this right after our meeting today, and we were talking about this in our meeting. The Advanced Materials Investigation. This research aims to identify, assess, and understand the types of composites and other advanced materials used in drones and advanced air mobility. These activities will be critical for developing standards and regulations to use these advanced materials in aircraft. And those grants went to Mississippi State and Wichita State. And we were actually talking in our meeting today about the materials that drones are made of, and the literally impact of drones and against both objects such as vehicles or buildings, as well as against people. And that topic had been broached in our conversation today, about the way that the the Assure studies came out with their mass and kinetic energy calculations, made it almost untenable to fly anything. It would have grounded most of the fleet in the United States of drones. So much so that a 500-gram drone could only fly up to like 12 miles an hour before it would broach those kinetic energy requisites. And the reason being is that they were using calculations based on old models, some of them from like the 1960s. So, um, it, fortunately, they've moved away from that, and it looks like they're moving more into a designated materials kind of research. So,
Yeah,
interesting.
this is very encouraging. One of the other things we're talking about is the work we're doing in the Drone Advisory Committee Tasking Group 11, which has to do with a fundamental or a foundational safety metric. And so we're working on something called a target level safety value. And this encourages the safety and energy transfer to be optimal for a person being struck, as opposed to creating something that's hard and rigid and would transfer a lot of energy when it hits an individual. So it's just great to see composite research. And also, if anyone's interested in this type of discussion, there's a great individual on YouTube, Chris Rosser, Rosser, I think is how it's spelled, who is definitely a mechanical engineer. And he's doing structural analysis and modal analysis on our frames. And it's great to see that. And he's got tips and techniques of things that you should do to get better flight characteristics just with the frames that we have. And so it's good to see some real good math and good engineering going into our end of the industry.
Absolutely. Second project is right-of-way rules for UAS operations and safety recommendations. And this is kind of what we were just talking about. Right-of-way rules keep aircraft safely separated. This research will explore right-of-way rules for a wide variety of drone operations. It will provide safety-based recommendations for the FAA and drone industry standards organizations to consider in establishing drone detect and avoid requirements. Those grants went to Embry-Riddle, University of Kansas, and the University of North Dakota. The flight recorder requirements kind of, when I first thought about it, it kind of irked me the wrong way. This kind of feels like remote ID on steroids, but I don't think that's what we're really focused on here. So don't freak out. But it says flight recorders can provide valuable data when drone incidents occur. This research will explore flight recorder requirements for drones, including remotely piloted advanced air mobility aircraft. The universities will share their findings with the European Organization for Civil Aviation Equipment. I believe this deals with the larger version of possible air mobility would be like people carrying drones.
Right.
Yeah, as long
That's
as they
right.
don't come up with research that says your tiny whoop in your backyard needs to have a black box flight recorder, you know.
There you go.
I mean, honestly, a lot of our drones have black box capability already. The flight controllers do, right? So it's probably different from what they're thinking, but a lot of that data is recorded and preserved. For us, we utilize it for tuning, right? So, a lot of that data I would imagine that data would be useful in any kind of circumstance, but at the same time, I don't feel like we need it to be a requirement. So, we'll be watching that one for sure. So,
Hey, Josh, could you copy that over to the Discord?
absolutely. I'm sorry.
No problem. I did not see this, and I wanted to read a little further.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. All right. Next, coming from Drone DJ, I feel like I'm utilizing them a lot, but they do have some great articles. This, I don't know if you guys heard, but there was a drone show in Zhengzhou. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Um, where the drones malfunctioned and started coming down. Some of them were landing amongst the crowd that had gathered. And this was October 1st at Wanda Plaza Shopping Mall. 200 drones took to the sky to commemorate the mall's anniversary with varied formations, but the show barely crossed the 2.5-minute mark before the drones started descending uncontrollably toward the ground. Videos captured by eyewitness show a drone bouncing off a car in a parking lot with several others dropping directly into the spectator zone, causing people to panic, though some decided to grab onto the falling machines as if they were souvenirs. Shocking.
And there were no injuries, right?
I don't believe so.
I assume we would have heard something if there was.
Yeah. I watched some of the videos when it
Isn't
happened.
it like they're just like floating down and
they weren't coming down like, bricks or anything. They were just kind of descending.
like they lost signal and just emergency land kind of thing.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was that big of a thing. But when there's 200 of them, I mean, that can be a little sketchy, right? So, according to local drone technology reporter Kanz Haiji, okay. The organizer of the drone light show has reported the matter to the police, suspecting that a competitor in the same industry could have transmitted interference to overwhelm the navigation systems of the drone. So this is what we've come to. We're sabotaging each other's drone shows. This is awesome.
Turns out it was a CCP demonstration of counter UAS.
Yeah, it wasn't a drone show. It was a counter UAS show.
Right.
It's funny. So, yeah, good stuff. It was. I think I caught it on Twitter or something when it happened, and I was like, "Oh boy, there you go." All right. So, Congressman Guest's Unmanned Aerial Security Act, approved by the U.S. House of Representatives. This is along the same topics of drone regulations against purchasing drones for the federal government from people that or countries that we've designated as adversaries. So this actually is pertaining to the Department of Homeland Security specifically, and then being able to purchase drones from again, countries who we've identified as a foreign adversary. So they can't. If this, I would assume this needs to pass the Senate before it goes anywhere. However, this would prevent the Department of Homeland Security from entering or renewing a contract for any unmanned aircraft systems or drones that have been manufactured in China or other countries deemed to be foreign adversaries. Of the top drone manufacturers that supply the United States market, a single Chinese manufacturer has nearly 77% of the market share. The Department of Homeland Security has issued warnings about Chinese-made drones, specifically citing concerns that data collected by the drones can be accessed by the Chinese government. This legislation is vital to protect our sensitive information from the Chinese Communist Party. So, there's two sides to this coin. One side is that our relations with China right now are probably not the best, but at the same time, I don't see currently a lot of evidence saying that the capability that everybody is kind of fearing is possible. Now, that all does rely on DJI as a company maintaining their own information servers and whatnot as secure against government snooping, essentially. So there is a lot of trust placed in a single organization. However, it's still hit or miss on whether that's actually happening or could possibly happen. One of the things that DJI has done is I think they've built servers here in the U.S. that maintain U.S. U.S. operator information. Second to that,
they also created a clean room copy of their firmware running their entire drone and controllers, so that it would be free of any communication back to anywhere, and that was directed for the
Department of the Interior.
But of course that didn't get used because those purchases were shut down in our
absolutely
infinite
wisdom. I feel like DJI has whether you like them or hate them or are ambivalent, I feel like they've gone through the measures to accommodate concerns like this for the United States. But the the current climate, both politically and worldwide is, it's a little rough right now. So, you can, again, like earlier, you can kind of see both sides of the coin. It just kind of up to you on which side you land on. So, um, but definitely more of the same that we've seen over the past year and a half on, you know, essentially the government boycott of DJI. So pretty interesting. Last but not least, and boy, did I time this really good tonight. But Vanilla Unmanned.
There's one more article after this that you had forgotten, so we'll mention it, but it's
Oh,
critically important.
oh, geez, I totally must have missed it. Let me drop this one in here, and I will drop in that last one real quick while I'm.
I was referencing the Pilot Institute XL interview.
Oh yes.
That dropped yesterday.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So this is actually, I have two more, so we'll talk about that, and then I've got one more involving the Pilot Institute as well. But let's see. Vanilla unmanned aircraft breaks another world record, proves astounding endurance. So this is a internal combustion engine drone. It's a tactical sized drone for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. The latest personal best of this UAS was a continuous flight of 8 days, 50 minutes, and 47 seconds without refueling. So that's pretty impressive. It started its flight on September 24th, and it was recovered this Saturday on October 2nd, totaling 12,200 miles. The demonstration took place over the Edwards Air Force Base in California, with Vanilla carrying two EO/IR cameras, two satellite communication systems for BV loss, a mesh radio system, and a radar.
And no need for bathroom breaks. How about that?
I know, right?
This is pretty cool.
It is really cool. So it runs on standard jet fuel, Jet A fuel. Carries more than 100 pounds of payload, including communication equipment and various sensors, and it holds official endurance records for its class. So this is really cool. I wish our drones could stay up for 8 days.
Yeah. 8 minutes is often pushing it.
That's right. 8 days. That's
8 days.
So cool. Dang.
So, pretty interesting. I don't have a link to the video, but I am going to drop a link after our meeting earlier this afternoon at the behest of the FAA FAST team, which is the FAA safety team. I went through and did one of their prototype trainings on FAAsafety.gov. Let's see.
ALC or ACL 723?
It's ALC 723. So cool thing here is I just created an account on the web page here, and then I was able to go through the training. So a lot of the past trainings on here, and I haven't dug into them, but according to the FAST team, a lot of the trainings on here were hour and a half long. They took time to get through, and in order to do that, or you do that in order to maintain what's called your WINGS program. So WINGS is kind of a continuing education for pilots, as well as, you basically, it's kind of like you get your pilot proficiency program, and you get kind of, little awards based off of it.
And your currency, if you don't take continuing education, you don't keep current. So, and you can get credit for training. So this is really important to crewed aircraft pilots.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got some WINGS points, and I have no idea what they're for.
So I went through, and you can just create an account here. And I went through, and the important one is ALC 723. It's a prototype one that the FAA has done in partnership with the Pilot Institute. And it's about, in fact, I think it's exactly 10 pages long. And that sounds big, but each page is its own video, and each video is anywhere from a minute to just under 10 minutes. I don't think there was any that were under 10, or that were over 10. I'm sorry. And in which Greg from the Pilot Institute goes through, and he's talking about aeronautical decision making, or ADM, which is, to be honest, is a topic that I hadn't thought about. So I definitely learned something from it. And it's put together in bite-sized chunks, so you don't have to complete it all in one go. You can watch a couple videos. There's a couple knowledge checks along the way, and at the end, you get a certificate saying, "Hey, I completed this program," and I believe you get some wings points too. The reason I mention this is one of the things that we as an organization, the FPVFC, had mentioned in our response to the advisory circular on CPOs was a creation of a program similar to Wings for UAS pilots. And funny enough, uh, they're working on something like that. So pretty cool. I don't know if it was because we mentioned it or if it was already in the works and we just, happened to have same brain at the, at the right time. But um, it was pretty interesting to hear. So this is a prototype. I encourage everybody to go on FAAsafety.gov, and I will drop that. Just check it out.
Did you see any opportunity for comments? Or there a comment
There
section
is at the very end of it. It asks you for feedback. There was 4 questions. You could just say, I think it was the training too long, not long enough, or just right. A couple multiple choice, and then there was a comment box at the end that you can leave feedback. I think it was. So for me, it was a pretty engaging topic. I'd never heard of aeronautical decision making before, and goes through different things like. Kind of like biases towards action. So it would be like, the macho attitude, like, hey, I got this, I can do whatever I want, the invincibility, basically saying, accidents happen to other people, they don't happen to me, that kind of thing. And then it breaks down how to kind of overcome those, as well as dealing with different types of stressors, and then being able to make decisions based on what the actual hazard is, and then what's the risk of something happening. So, as one of the examples he gives, which I thought was pretty cool, is you're flying, you're at 200 feet, and a helicopter comes in and it's at 200 feet. So, the hazard is the helicopter flying at the same altitude as you. So, at which point you need to make a risk assessment and basically say, what's the immediate, what's the level of risk here? Is it catastrophic? So if my drone hits that helicopter, what's the potential for catastrophic damage versus what's the potential for, nothing to happen? And then what do you do in response to that? So some pretty good information on there. And again, never heard of it before, but definitely learned something out of it. So yeah, absolutely, manned aviation has the right of way. Yes, very true. And he goes through that, and same thing he talks about. You can, as an operator of a multi-rotor, you have many directions. You can ascend, you can descend, you can move left, you can move right, you can move forward, you can move backward. The smart thing is to descend, right? But then, it goes back through the cycle. Well, you descended, and then the helicopter started descending because it's going to land, over right over here, and you didn't know that it was going to land. Maybe it's an emergency helicopter, right? So then you go through the cycle again. What's the hazard? What's the risk assessment? And then what's your action? So, pretty cool thing.
Or
So
maybe you're
definitely recommend
flying a tiny whoop and the prop wash from the helicopter will take care of it.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. I need to see
part
that.
of the ADM is part of the ADM is avoidance. So,
Mhm.
maneuverability and closing rate. These are all critical aspects of that decision process. So yeah, good reference, and I will definitely take that course too and leave some comments.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. I sat and did the whole thing all the way through, because I felt it was pretty engaging. Greg's a great teacher, so It was interesting to learn about it, and it was definitely engaging. So I think overall it maybe took me 45 minutes to go through all of it. It wasn't that long. So and then there's a test at the end. And so yeah. And then second to that, Dave and I had an opportunity to do an interview with Drone XL. And let's see. I don't have the link for it. Do you, Dave? See if I can find it.
I don't. There's a PIXL on YouTube. Is their that's their channel.
Pixel XL, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's in Pilot Institute XL, all one word.
So drone show. Here we go. Let's see. Oh boy, we did. Okay, so I'm going to grab this link. I believe they said it was the longest interview they've ever done to date, and this is their 26th show. So they've been doing this for just over a year now, I believe.
Is the longest a good thing or a bad thing?
No,
it
went well. And I felt it went well. I haven't reviewed the final product. It was not showcased live. It was something that we recorded, so I don't know what edits were made, but I will say that I lost my train of thought a couple of times. That's on me. But
this is a great group where there were 3 people interviewing Josh and me, and this is part of our expanding network. So Pilot Institute, obviously well-known, highly respected trainers, both in manned aircraft or crewed aircraft, as well as unmanned, and a great bunch of folks, in addition to Haye and Kara, who also were asking questions. And this is part of our overlap into commercial, and so most of their customers are commercial, and that's why it's a great relationship. And so if you're going to take the trust, or take trust, not the trust, not the then Pilot Institute offers it. That's where I took it, and it's a great relationship. They also were the hosting for the drone at night, droning on after night. So this is a good relationship, and we appreciate all the work that Greg and his company is doing.
Absolutely. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoy doing these interviews. We've done Joshua Bardwell twice now, I think. We've done we did Mike Rollins.
Michael
right?
Rollins. Yep.
We've
Gosh,
done
that
these
feels
guys.
like ages ago you did both of those.
It was.
Ancient.
Yeah. So we've done a couple of these. They're always interesting, and it's good to talk to people that we know or have developed relationships with and whatnot. So for me, it was cool to be able to talk with Joshua Bardwell, just because I've watched so many of his videos, especially when I was getting started in the whole FPV thing. So and cool thing is Greg doesn't live that far from me, and there's actually an Arizona drone event coming up, and I think I'm gonna go swing by, and I think Greg will be there, so we'll be able to kind of touch base on a personal level there, and get to meet each other. So it'll be pretty cool. So yeah. That's all I have. I think we went way over, but lots of good articles, lots of good information. Great meetings yesterday and today with the FAA.
Lots and lots and lots of FAA meetings.
Yep. So, but
PAC
while
meetings,
there's
TV loss meetings, ASTM meetings. Yep. busy.
Yep.
It's a good thing you're retired, Dave, so you can actually attend all these meetings.
That's it. I don't know how I'd do it otherwise.
It was funny. I was talking to elderly lady earlier this morning, and we were talking about hobbies, and I was like, yeah, I have like 15 hobbies, and she's like, well, that's a good thing. She's like, because when you get old, you need something to do. That way you won't die. And I'm just like,
Jeez.
oh my
Wow.
goodness.
He's right. Gotta be accountable. Gotta use your brain. Gotta exercise. Absolutely right. I'm with your friend.
She was so matter of fact. I was just like, okay. She's like, it's something you have to consider when you're my age.
Right.
You've got a little time there, Josh, I think.
I know. I was just like, okay, all right.
Hobbies can
Yes,
come and
ma'am.
go, many of them before then.
Absolutely. But you know what? As long as you're keeping engaged, your brain moving and your body moving, you're doing something right. Yeah.
And hopefully FPV and drones will still be around when it's time for us to retire.
Yeah, for sure. We got to be as cool as Dave. So can't let him outshine us.
If he does all the hard
There you
work
go.
and clears things up with the FAA, then we don't have to do any of that in the future. When we retire, it'll be...
Just chill.
All right, good times. So, unfortunately, not a lot of time for DAC updates or ASTM updates this time, but we'll catch you on the next one. And I might let Dave talk a little bit, but for tonight, we'll let you go. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a good evening.